Hey guys, Dr. Shook here, and it's another sauna session. In this session, what I'd like to talk to you guys about is the impact of hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's on gallbladder function, right? Because a lot of people have gallbladder issues. And so I want to share with you guys that, studies have shown us that about 50% of people, or roughly half of people that are hypothyroid, have problems with gallbladder function. Because remember, how many cells or what cells of the body require thyroid hormone? What cells of the body require thyroid hormone? Think about it for a minute and just answer to yourself, right? Which ones? If you remember, it's every single cell in the body requires thyroid hormone. And so what happens if you're hypothyroid or you're deficient? Well, remember, thyroid hormone drives the proteomic response. It actually attaches to the DNA in the cell, drives protein, and protein metabolism drives the engine of the cell so that it can reproduce, rebuild. And it pushes the physiology, right? It sets your basal metabolic rate. That's the rate of metabolism. So when you're deficient, what you'll see happen is everything can just slow down. Now, that's not good at all for the liver, because guess what the liver does? A lot of things, right? But it biotransforms. It breaks down things in the body, especially hormones, chemicals, medications that you might be taking, and it puts them into a form that is water soluble, so you can eliminate it through, like I'm doing here, through my sweat, through urine, and through feces, right? So you can pass it in your stool. But where does it go once it's in the liver? Well, most of it's going to go where? Into the bile, right? Because the gallbladder sits right there under the liver. And so the gallbladder also has these things called bile salts. Now, the bile salts are important because the salts help to emulsify or break down fats so that you can absorb them through the GI tract wall. Without adequate bile salts, you can have malabsorption or poor absorption of fats, right? So, and that's important because fats, every single cell in your body, what's this outside bubble of the cell called? It's the cell wall, okay? It's made of phospholipids. Lipid is a fat, okay? So your cell walls, your cells, the entire outside, the membrane, the cell wall is fat. If you can't absorb fat, you can have dysfunction on a cellular level. It's why essential fatty acids and adequate fat intake is huge for people, absolutely critical. And so it's also how you absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K. So vitamins A, D, E, and K are the fat-soluble vitamins. How many of you guys have had your vitamin D checked and you're low? Okay, is it just because you don't get enough sun? Well, I mean, that's a real big driver of the process of the problem. Or is it possibly because the food that you're eating that has vitamin D in it, you're not absorbing? Because maybe you have poor absorption of fats. There's a lot of different reasons, right? So talking about the gallbladder will become sluggish, and it will have poor or sluggish contraction, so you won't have this ejection of the bile salts into the small intestine. Because if you've seen one of my previous videos, I talked about low stomach acidity, and I talked about poor gallbladder. And the reason I hold my hands like this is because they kind of sit across from each other. Gallbladder is here, pancreas is here, small intestine is a tube that comes down from the stomach. As soon as your food leaves the stomach and goes into that first part of the small intestine, the acidity triggers the gallbladder and the pancreas to release enzymes and mix with the food so that you can absorb fats, digest it, break it down. And if you have poor thyroid function, then you can have a sluggish or poorly contracting gallbladder, and that can result in this malabsorption or poor absorption of fats because you don't get enough bile salts mixed in with the food, and then you don't absorb your fats. Okay, and then you have all these other problems. Then you have there's just a lot of issues, right? So hypothyroidism is a major problem, and let me say this: hypothyroidism, but not only hypothyroidism, where you think like low quantities of thyroid hormone, but poor thyroid physiological function, right? Because when I teach about the thyroid and I talk about the thyroid to you guys, I want you to know that it's not just the thyroid hormone quantity. It has a lot to do with what's your physiology like. So once the quantity's there, are you converting T4 to T3 in the liver and the GI tract properly? Can you transport the thyroid hormones through the bloodstream on the thyroid binding globulins, the transport proteins? Is there a problem with your transport? Is there a problem with the conversion? Then if you've got that part, how can you use it? Can you utilize the thyroid hormone at the cell? And you know that there's things that disrupt that. There's inflammation. There's nutrient deficiencies like vitamin A and vitamin D. We know that the receptor on the DNA of the cell is dependent. That's the thyroid hormone receptor is dependent upon adequate vitamin A and vitamin D. So if you have problems there, you'll have problems stimulating the cell Even if you have normal quantity of hormone, then do you have high levels of inflammation that can make the cells less responsive to the hormone? So the quantity is normal, but because inflammation's high, the cell isn't triggered. Do you have issues with cortisol? Do you have high levels of cortisol, which can cause problems? These are all things that need to be considered. And there's thyroid physiology. So you might have normal quantities, but you're not stimulating the cells properly, so you have poor gallbladder function. So it's not just like hypothyroidism as we think, you have low thyroid hormone quantities, because it's not just the quantity. That's a huge point, right? It's huge point that's very commonly not understood. So thyroid hormones activity is extremely important for the gallbladder. And guess what happens if the gallbladder becomes sluggish for long enough? You can have stones form, gallstones, because it's sluggish and it sits there and it's stagnant. And so you can have issues there with just the gallbladder activity, and it can lead to stones. All right, so these are all things that you got to consider, you need to know about. Everything is connected in the body, right? Everything's connected. Don't let anyone try to convince you that it's one marker, one solution, right? I don't care if it's a natural supplement or a medication. There's time and place for just about everything, I think, and that's including medications, right? So I'm not anti-medicine at all. Actually, I'm thankful that we have what we have. And I'm not anti-supplementation, but I hate to see people on 50 supplements when the diet's not where it needs to be. And I hate to see people on 50 supplements anyway. I mean, it's just, it's too much. It's ridiculous, really. I want you guys to understand that, less is often more. Being specific about what you're doing is really important, right? Knowing why you're doing what you're doing. And that's saves you time and it saves you money long term if you're trying to get better. So I'm just trying to teach you guys some concepts so that you can be your own advocate, you can take your health back, and you can be informed. So keep learning, post questions. If you have any questions for us, let us know. If you want to know where to start with like labs, people ask us this all the time. I would look at, I created a guidebook called the 9 Tests Required to Understand Your Thyroid. If you want to know more about that and how to get access to it, just post in the comments below. Say, hey, I'd like to get access to the guidebook, and we will post a link for you so that you can go check that out and see if you want to learn more. But we try to give you the 9 tests. I want you to understand the 9 tests so that you can look at the thyroid physiology and better understand what's going on. And that's what I try to do in that guidebook. It's about 14 pages, and it's been really helpful for a lot of people to better understand what's happening to them. So I appreciate you guys. If you need anything from us, just let us know. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a wonderful day.